I used to do this thing, drive through South Texas in the dead of night, usually after a full shift. It wasn't a choice, really. It was just how my schedule lined up. And once I was on the road, there was no turning back. Route 77 would stretch on like some endless belt of blacktop, cutting through silence, broken only by the low hum of the tires and whatever late-night static the radio could pick up. I wasn't someone who liked stopping. Too many weird places, too many flickering lights and empty lots that felt like they'd been forgotten. But when you're fighting sleep, it stops being about comfort. You just need a hit of something, coffee, movement, noise, anything to snap your brain out of that fog. That night didn't feel any different at first. Just another bleary-eyed drive with the AC on full blast to keep me from nodding off. I remember thinking how dead the road felt. No taillights ahead, no headlights behind. Just me and that strange humming emptiness that only exists in the early hours. Gas was low, so I took the first exit I saw with a lit-up sign. Some off-brand station. I didn't even catch the name. The lot was mostly empty. Maybe one other car. The place looked like it had aged 10 years in silence. I told myself it'd be a quick in and out, like all the other stops. Get coffee, pay, gas up, keep moving. I didn't know yet how much that stop would mess with my head. Didn't know how a place that looked like every other could make me feel different. But it did, and I still don't know why it played out the way it did. I veered off the main highway, one of those sudden decisions you make when your brain's more fog than thought. I don't even remember what the name of the exit was, or if there was one. Just a flickering sign that promised gas and maybe coffee. That was all I needed. The station looked like it had been barely holding on. Old signage, buzzing light above the door. One of the letters burned out. I think it said Quick Mart or something just as forgettable. The air around the place felt still, like even the wind didn't bother with it. There was one car in the lot, off to the side, not even pulled into a spot properly. The windows were too dark to see through, and something about it just felt wrong. Not in a dramatic way, more like a gut whisper. But again, I told myself to quit being paranoid. I was tired, overthinking things. Just grab the coffee and keep it moving. I stepped inside and everything was washed in that pale, buzzing light. Behind the counter was a guy who barely looked up, mid-40s maybe, just standing there like the night was something he was trying not to feel. The other person in there was pacing, slow, aimless, like he didn't actually want anything, just looping the same aisle again and again. I've seen that kind of pacing before. It's the kind that doesn't match the setting. No shopping, no browsing, just waiting. Or stalling. It threw me off. That rhythm, the way he'd stop, glance around, and keep walking like he was trying to remember what he'd forgotten. But maybe I'm just trying to find meaning in things that didn't make sense, then and still don't. I remember how he stood near the coffee, not doing anything, just kind of hovering like he belonged there. It wasn't that he was blocking me or anything, but he was close enough that I noticed, too close for a stranger. He didn't look like he needed coffee, didn't even have a cup, just stood there, not looking at me directly, but not really looking at anything either. It was like he was trying to blend in, and not doing a great job of it. Then he said something. Just a comment about the coffee being hot. I don't know why that sentence sticks with me. It was such a normal thing to say, but it felt so placed, too casual to be real. Like he was trying to say something just for the sake of starting a conversation, but it didn't feel spontaneous. It felt rehearsed, like he had tried this before. There was something weird in his tone, too relaxed, too smooth, like he was trying not to sound threatening, which somehow made it worse. My stomach twisted a little. I didn't say anything back, just acted like I didn't hear it, poured the coffee, and kept my eyes on the machine. I should have left right then. The moment felt off, like something in the air had shifted, but I didn't want to be rude, or maybe I just didn't want to admit I felt creeped out. I was tired, and part of me wanted to believe it was nothing, just another weirdo at a gas station. But even as I walked to the counter to pay, I felt him behind me, that heavy presence, like someone standing just a bit too close for no good reason, and I knew I should have trusted my gut. As I stepped out of the shop, The air hit me a little cooler than I remembered. I was just trying to get back to my car, but something pulled my attention to the side of the building. That old, dingy restroom tucked away near the back, barely lit, half in shadow. The men's bathroom door was cracked open just barely, not wide, just enough to notice. Like someone had gone in and forgotten to pull it shut behind them, or maybe someone had come out, but not all the way. I didn't go inside, didn't even step closer, but I paused, just for a second, like my brain needed a reason not to look, and I did. I looked, couldn't see much. A sliver of a room that looked like any other grimy gas station bathroom, off-white tile, some flickering light somewhere inside, the smell of bleach still faint in the air, but it was the stillness that caught me. Not quiet, still, like the air in there wasn't moving, like the whole space was holding its breath. I stood there, trying to convince myself I was just being weird about it, tired, jumpy from that guy inside. Maybe the wind blew the door, or maybe the latch was broken, but the longer I looked, the more it felt wrong. The crack in the door wasn't an accident. It felt like an invitation or a warning, and I had this weird sensation, not that I was seeing something, but that something in there might be seeing me. It's hard to explain, just this low buzz in my chest, like I was crossing into something I shouldn't, so I turned away, told myself to let it go. But even walking back to the pump, I didn't feel alone. I got back to my car and started the pump like it was any other stop. The nozzle clicked into place and I pressed the handle, watching the numbers roll. I was trying not to think about the guy from inside, trying to shake off that tight feeling in my chest. But then I heard the door open behind me, the little bell giving that hollow jingle, and I just knew I didn't have to look. I knew it was him. I could feel him, somehow. That weird pressure of someone else's attention sticking to your back. His footsteps weren't loud, just that slow scuff of shoes on concrete, like he didn't care if I heard him or not. He wasn't at a pump, no car, just there, lingering. I didn't turn around, didn't say anything. I kept my eyes locked on the pump like that was the most important thing in the world. I was holding the handle with one hand and my breath with the other, pretending I was fine, just tired, just ready to finish and keep driving. But I could feel him getting closer. A little at a time, like he was creeping around some invisible line. That's when I knew this wasn't just some weird guy making conversation. This was something else. Something I didn't want to name. Something waiting. He didn't say anything, not at first, but I could feel him back there, standing just far enough to not cross a line, but close enough that I knew he could at any moment. The kind of closeness that's quiet on purpose, the kind that listens more than it talks. And I just stood there, holding the pump like it was going to protect me. The pump clicked off, and for a moment I thought about just driving off. The change wasn't much, maybe a few bucks, nothing I couldn't live without, but it wasn't about the money. It was the principle, the routine. I always went back in for the change, and that night, for some reason, that part of my brain insisted on sticking to normal. But I didn't want to go back in. I really didn't. Just the idea of having to pass by him again, being exposed between the shop doors and the pumps, it made my skin crawl. I hesitated with my hand on the car door, trying to act like I was just taking my time. But inside, every part of me was screaming to leave. Still, I went. I kept my head up and walked, like I had a reason, like nothing was bothering me. I tried not to check over my shoulder too obviously, but my body didn't trust what my eyes were telling me. I said something quick to the cashier, just enough to hint that something was off, hoping maybe he'd pick up on it. He nodded like he heard me, but his face didn't change, like I'd just told him I forgot my receipt or something. I got the change. It felt cold in my hand, damp almost. I lingered near the door before heading back out. I looked through the glass. Parking lot looked clear, too clear. He wasn't by the pumps, not anywhere near the shop. I couldn't see him at all, but I knew he hadn't left. I don't know how, I just knew. It was that same feeling from earlier, like static under the skin. He was out there, somewhere, just not where I could see. I didn't go straight to my car. I stayed on the small concrete sidewalk outside the shop, acting like I was scrolling through my phone, just killing time. But really, I was stalling. My heart was doing this weird thing, beating slow but hard, like it knew more than I did. I didn't want to walk into the open again. I didn't want to find out the hard way that he was still around. That's when the pickup pulled in. Big truck, loud engine, headlights cutting across the lot. Some guy stepped out, older, broad shoulders, had this calm air about him that made me feel just a little less crazy. I walked up, tried to sound casual like I wasn't shaking inside, and asked if he could check around my car. I didn't give a full explanation, just enough for him to know something wasn't right. He looked confused, but nodded and started walking. Then, out of nowhere, just a yell, not angry, just sharp and sudden, like someone warning a dog to back off. And then, I saw him, the man from earlier. He bolted from the back of my car, like he'd been crouched there, waiting, like he'd timed it all out, waiting for that exact moment when I'd unlock the doors and drop my guard. He didn't say anything this time, just took off into the dark, into whatever was behind that building. I don't even remember getting into the car. I just remember slamming the door shut and locking it before I could even take a breath. I didn't look back until I was already miles down the road. But that image, him crouched behind my car, waiting, that's never left. It's the kind of thing you don't just forget. I was in my second year of college, the kind of broke where you microwave the same cup of noodles 3 times before giving up and eating it cold. Between classes and trying not to flunk out, I picked up a night shift at a gas station just off campus, midnight to 6 a.m. Not exactly prime hours for anything but raccoons and bad decisions, but it paid enough to keep my lights on and Wi-Fi working. The thing about night shifts is they start blending together fast. Same beeping register, same buzzing freezer, same humming overhead lights that flicker like they're trying to annoy you. At some point, my memory of those early weeks just turned into this foggy loop, me half asleep behind the counter, chugging stale coffee, scrolling through class discussion boards I'd never post in. And then there was this guy. I don't remember the exact first time he came in. He didn't make an impression at first. It was always late, 1:30, maybe 2 a.m. Always the same look, tall, underfed, long hair that clung to his face like it hadn't been washed in a while. Eyes that somehow looked past you. He'd walk in like he'd done it 100 times. Head to the back, grab a tall boy from the cooler, and pay in silence. He never bought gas. Not once. Never asked for smokes. Never grabbed snacks. Just beer. And the weird thing was, he never seemed in a rush to leave. He'd hang around for a few minutes by the coffee station or the candy aisle, just existing. Not shopping. Not talking. Not even pretending. I didn't think much of it at the time. I wish I had. I don't know exactly when I started paying closer attention to him. Maybe it was the night he leaned against the candy shelf for 20 minutes without moving. Or maybe it was the way he looked at things, like the whole store was a memory he was trying to pull back into focus. He still didn't talk. I mean, not in any way that counted. Maybe a grunt here, a muttered thanks. But that was it. And yet somehow he felt louder than anyone else who came through those doors. Some nights he seemed okay. Clear-eyed, steady hands. He'd grab his drink and head out like clockwork. But other nights, he'd stumble a little, lean his whole weight onto the shelf like it was holding him up. I remember thinking once, weirdly, that he looked like someone coming down from something, not drunk, not high, just detached. What really got to me, though, was the way he'd look at me. Not directly, never like someone trying to start a conversation. It was more like he was measuring something, or waiting. Sometimes I'd glance up from the register and catch him just staring, not in a creepy, obvious way, more like he was trying to decide what to do next, and I was part of the math. Other times, he wouldn't look at me at all. He'd just stand near the drinks or by the entrance, eyes locked on some invisible point past the shelves, like he was watching something that wasn't there anymore, or maybe never was. I told myself I was imagining it. Just a guy, probably down bad, maybe with nowhere else to go. I tried not to overthink it, but something about him always made me feel like I should. Most nights he was just background noise. Odd, sure, but quiet enough to ignore. But I remember the night he finally spoke to me like it just happened. The way he said my name, it wasn't casual. It felt like a test. He asked for it first. Out of nowhere, I gave it without thinking. I was tired, not really clocked in mentally. Just figured it was normal night shift small talk. Some lonely guy reaching for a little human connection. Happens more than you'd think. But the way he repeated it back like he was tasting it, and then laughed. That part stuck with me. It wasn't a normal laugh. Not mean, not joyful either. Just strange, off. Like he thought the name carried some kind of weight I didn't get. Like he'd heard it before. Or maybe just liked how it sounded. Either way, it was the first time he didn't feel like a ghost in the aisles. He felt real in that moment. Tangible, too tangible. So I asked his name back, mostly out of reflex. He paused for a second. Just a second, but it was long enough to notice. Then he said, Gary, flat. No expression, just a name dropped into the air like it didn't belong to him. It felt fake, the kind of name you grab when you're caught off guard, but I didn't push it. He hung around longer that night, started talking, more than usual. Rambling, really, said the world took everything from him. Mentioned jobs, people, maybe a place he lost. He didn't get specific, just kept circling around this vague idea of being wronged. This town's full of guys like that. People chewing on their own bitterness like it's the only thing keeping them alive. Still, something about the way he said it made me feel like he meant every word. There was this stretch of time where he just stopped showing up. No warning, no slow fade. He was just gone, and as much as he creeped me out sometimes, I felt this weird mix of relief and unease. Like I could breathe easier, but also like something was unfinished. He'd become part of the routine, and now there was this weird absence, like a quiet hum had suddenly cut out. It was around the third night without him, when the store phone rang. It was close to 3 a.m., dead hour. No one calls then. I figured maybe it was my manager doing a check-in, or someone looking for directions. Happens. But the second I picked up, I knew it wasn't normal. Nothing at first, just breathing. Not panicked, not deep, just steady. Like someone on the other end was waiting, listening, not sure if they were supposed to speak. I held the phone there for maybe 10 seconds before I said hello again. That's when I heard something. Muffled, garbled, not even clear enough to be words. Could have been static, could have been someone whispering. I don't know, but I swear it sounded like my name, or close to it. It wasn't enough to call it a threat, but it wasn't nothing either. I hung up, slowly. The air in the store suddenly felt heavier, like I wasn't alone anymore. I remember checking the parking lot through the window. Nothing there. Still, I kept glancing over my shoulder the rest of the night, and then the very next night, like clockwork, he walked in again. Same limp hair, same blank stare, same tall boy from the cooler, like nothing happened, like that phone call hadn't happened at all. I didn't say a word, neither did he. The thing about working nights is eventually the silence starts to feel normal. You get used to the hum of the cooler and the occasional car passing by, but storms mess with that rhythm. They make everything louder, emptier. And that night, the rain was so loud it felt like it was trying to punch holes through the roof. There were barely any customers. None, really. And I remember thinking the shift might actually be peaceful for once. Then the door chimed. I didn't even look right away. I just knew it was him. And when I did glance up, there he was. Soaked, hair plastered to his face. No jacket, no umbrella, just standing there, dripping, water pooling at his feet. He didn't move for a long time. Didn't even seem like he noticed where he was. He just stared straight ahead at the blank part of the wall near the entrance like he was watching a movie, only he could see. Something was different. He didn't feel off the way he usually did. This was worse. He looked hollowed out, like something had been scraped out of him. Eventually, he said something, barely above a whisper. I think it was, I did something bad. I don't even know if he was talking to me. Maybe he wasn't. Maybe he didn't care who heard. Then he walked past the register and down the hallway toward the restrooms. Just disappeared behind the corner without looking back. I could have said something. Should have. But I didn't. Maybe I was scared. Maybe I told myself it wasn't my business. But really, I think I just didn't want to know what he meant. Not knowing felt safer. Maybe 15 minutes passed after he vanished down that hallway. I tried to go back to normal, restock the candy shelf, tidy up behind the counter, but I couldn't focus. My eyes kept drifting to the hallway, expecting him to come out. He didn't. Then the power went. No flicker, just total black. The hum of the coolers died, the overhead snapped off, and the store fell into this weird, unnatural silence. I swear the storm even felt quieter after that, like the building had been sealed shut. I stood there frozen, one hand still resting on the register. It's funny what your brain does in those moments. I wasn't scared yet, just confused. But something deep down knew this wasn't just a routine outage. I fumbled under the counter for the flashlight. My manager always kept one tucked back there, in case of nights like this. I turned it on, and the narrow beam cut through the dark like a knife. Everything looked different in that kind of light. Smaller, creepier. I headed toward the back to check the breaker. That hallway always felt too quiet, but now it felt like walking into a basement you didn't want to be in. As I passed the bathrooms, I noticed both doors were open just slightly. I nudged them wider with my foot, empty. No sign of him. That's when I heard it. That unmistakable squeak of wet shoes on tile. Close, too close. I swung the light toward the sound. He was in the back room, crouched in the corner like he'd been waiting there the whole time. His eyes were wide, locked on me. He didn't say anything, just lunged. I didn't even have time to think. I don't remember how I pushed past him. I just remember the way he screamed, this raw, broken sound that didn't even sound like a person, and his hands were on me. Scratching, grabbing, trying to hold on. I think he said something. I'm almost sure he said he'd kill me, but I try not to replay that part too much. I stumbled through the hallway and out the front, not even looking back. The storm hit me like a wall. I didn't care. I ran across the lot and jumped into my car, soaking the seat. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. I called the cops, and I could barely get the words out. They showed up fast, probably because of how I sounded. I went back inside with them, flashlight in hand, heart pounding. He didn't come out. They had to find him. He was in the storage room in the back, crouched behind some boxes. One of the cops told me he looked like an animal, eyes wide, not saying a word. They got him out quietly. I just stood by the register and watched. I couldn't even feel anything. Weeks later, someone from the department called me, said his real name wasn't Gary, it was Martin. He'd been on the run. His ex-wife was dead, brutally. They weren't sure when it happened, but it might have been that same night he showed up soaking wet, asking for a place to hide. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I hesitated, if I said yes, if I wasn't fast enough. But the part that sticks with me, the part I can't shake, is the way he said my name, like he knew me already, like I was part of something I didn't understand. I don't take night shifts anymore. It's weird how certain routines just stick with you, like muscle memory, but for moments. Back when I was a kid, maybe 9 or 10, mornings felt different, heavier, slower. There was something about being up before the sun, the sky still that deep navy color, and the air cold enough to sting your nose just a little when you stepped outside. My mom taught at a school way out past town, so we'd leave our place in the dark most mornings, cruising along half-lit roads while the world was still asleep. I'd ride shotgun, wrapped in a blanket, barely awake while the radio hummed something soft in the background. Some days I pretended to sleep just to avoid talking. Not that she was big on conversation that early either. It was just quiet, the kind of quiet that only exists before the day really starts. We always made this stop though, same gas station, every time. It sat on the edge of nowhere, halfway between our neighborhood and her school. It wasn't anything special, not by a long shot. A cracked lot, flickering fluorescent lights, faded sign that probably used to say Martin's Fuel in full. It was the kind of place that felt like it had always been there. You didn't notice it unless you were looking for it. There was a guy who ran it, older, gray at the temples, wore a dark blue jumpsuit with a name patch that was too faded to read. Dave? Maybe Dan. I honestly can't remember now, but he was always there. Rain, cold, whatever, it didn't matter. He'd shuffle out of that little glass booth with his change dispenser on his hip, like clockwork, just part of the background, like the pumps, like the morning. It's strange how you don't always recognize a moment as weird when you're in it, especially when you're a kid. You just kind of absorb things without knowing why they feel wrong. Looking back now, I can say there was a shift. Something changed in the rhythm of our mornings, but at the time it just felt like a blip. There was this one morning, not all that different from the others. Same darkness, same cracked pavement under the tires, same flickering lights trying to stay awake. We pulled into the station like always, expecting that same quiet shuffle from the booth, the sound of the pump nozzle clacking free, the usual. But Dave, if that was really his name, came out like he was somewhere else entirely. He moved differently, quicker but distracted, kept looking around like he was expecting someone or trying not to see something. No window cleaning, no lazy nod, none of that weirdly comforting routine he always did. He didn't even look at us. Just filled the tank like it was a chore he couldn't wait to finish, and walked off without saying a word. I remember watching him go back to the booth, the way his shoulders looked kind of hunched, like he was bracing for something. My mom didn't say anything, but I swear she noticed too. She handed him the cash with this quick, polite smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. And then we just drove off, but I kept glancing back through the rearview mirror, watching the booth shrink behind us. That feeling stuck with me the rest of the ride, like we'd seen something we weren't supposed to, even if we didn't know what it was. It didn't belong in our mornings. Not there, not at that place. It's funny how a memory like that doesn't fade even when everything else around it does. I don't remember what day it was, or what we had for breakfast, or what song was on the radio, but I remember that I had to pee. Like urgently. We were early that morning, earlier than usual, and the station was just waking up, lights buzzing like they were still stretching their legs. I ran around the side like I always did. The bathrooms were tucked in the back, behind the pumps, past a row of half-dead bushes and a sagging trash can that always smelled like warm soda. The men's door was this swollen, crooked slab of wood that never shut quite right. You could hear everything through it. Cars, wind, sometimes voices from the booth if the angle was right. But that morning I heard something different. There were voices, not loud but tight, low and tense, like when grown-ups are pretending not to argue but you can tell they're fighting anyway. One of them was definitely Dave. I recognized his scratchy kind of drawl. The other voice was lower, calmer in a cold kind of way. I couldn't make out every word, but it felt like they were talking about money, not in the usual way. It had teeth in it, pressure. It only lasted a minute, maybe less, then silence. I remember just standing there for a second, hand on the lock, heart suddenly way too loud in my ears. I finished up quick, didn't flush, didn't wash my hands, just slipped out and back to the car like nothing had happened. I didn't say a word to my mom. I don't know why. Maybe I was scared. Maybe I didn't want it to be real. But that voice, both of them, they stayed with me. Still do. It was maybe 3 or 4 days after that bathroom morning, enough time for everything to feel normal again. Or at least pretend to. We didn't talk about what I'd overheard, mostly because I never brought it up. But I remember feeling uneasy every time we pulled into that station afterward. Like the place itself had shifted slightly, tilted just enough to make me feel off balance. That morning started like the rest. Still dark headlights cutting through mist. The road empty in that way only early mornings can be. But the second we pulled in, I knew something was wrong. The station was dead, not just closed, empty. Booth dark, no flicker from the inside lights, no reflection off the dusty glass. The pumps sat quiet, like statues. No music playing from the tiny radio inside. Nothing. My mom gave the horn a quick tap, just a light "we're here" kind of beep. Nothing. She tried again, longer this time. Still nothing. I kept my eyes on the booth, expecting Dave to pop up like always, maybe looking groggy or annoyed. But the shadows didn't move. The door didn't open. The stillness felt unnatural, like the whole place had been vacuumed out overnight. We waited, longer than we probably should have. My mom drummed her fingers on the steering wheel. I remember the tension, not panic, not yet, but a shared weirdness between us that no one wanted to say out loud. It felt like time had paused, like we were stuck in some weird loop where the rest of the world kept moving. But this place didn't get the memo. Eventually she gave up, said we'd stop somewhere else. But as we pulled away, I looked back again. I don't know what I expected to see. A figure in the window, a flicker of light, anything, but it stayed still, too still. It's such a small thing when I think about it now. The kind of moment you usually wouldn't even remember, but for some reason, it's the one that won't let go. We were still sitting there, booth, dark, station, silent, and everything about it just felt wrong. Not in a dramatic way, just off. And then I felt it, that familiar pressure in my stomach, the quiet kind that always hit about halfway through the drive. I told my mom I needed to go to the bathroom, just like every other time. Like all those mornings before, I remember reaching for the door handle, that smooth click as my fingers slid around it. I wasn't nervous. Not yet, it was just routine. But before I could open the door, she said no. It wasn't a snap or anything, just a calm, almost distracted "we'll stop at the next place." No big explanation, no urgency, but something about the way she said it made me freeze. I didn't push it, didn't even whine, which I usually would have at that age. I just let go of the handle and sank back into my seat, suddenly aware of how cold it felt inside the car. I've replayed that second in my head more times than I can count. That simple motion, hand reaching, then stopping. I didn't understand it then. It was nothing, just a mom telling her kid to hold it. But now, I don't know. That pause feels heavier, like something brushed up against us and we didn't see it. That tiny decision not to open the door, not to go around back, it haunts me more than anything else. It was an almost, and almost have a way of sticking with you. It was one of those slow mornings at home. No rush, no drive, just the clink of a spoon in a coffee mug and the soft crackle of the newspaper as my mom flipped through the pages. I was half listening, half zoning out, still waking up. She always read the paper front to back, every section. It was part of her routine. Then she just stopped. No sound, no page turning, just stillness. I looked over and saw her frozen, eyes locked on something in the middle pages. Not the front, not even the crime section, just some small corner of the local news, like the kind of story that doesn't get headlines, the kind that most people never even notice. She read it out loud, but not like she was talking to me, more like she needed to say it to make it real. Gas station attendant found dead, multiple stab wounds, found in the men's bathroom, robbery likely, no arrests, no suspects. It was Martin's Fuel, our gas station, the one with the dusty pumps and the booth with the radio always playing something scratchy, the one with the crooked bathroom door I knew better than my own, the one I almost walked into that morning when no one showed up. And that's when everything sort of fell sideways in my brain, like all those little weird things. Dave acting off, the voices behind the door, the empty booth, the moment my hand hit the car door handle, suddenly lined up. Not neatly, not like a movie, just enough to feel sick in my stomach. She didn't say anything else, just folded the paper slowly, like it weighed more than it should have. And I sat there staring at the floor, trying to convince myself it wasn't the same bathroom, even though I already knew it was. It's not something I think about every day. Life moves on, you grow up, other things take over, but still it finds its way in. When I'm tired, when I drive past an old station, when I wake up too early and the world's still dark and quiet, that morning crawls back into my head like it never really left. I keep going back to that second. The door handle, my hand on it, that tiny, forgettable movement. What if I hadn't listened? What if I'd pushed the door open? What if I had been the one who found him? I was a kid, 9, maybe 10. What would that have done to me? It's not just the fear that creeps in, it's the uncertainty, that sense that I brushed up against something horrible without even realizing it, that I came inches from seeing something I would never have been able to unsee. I didn't, but I could have. and that almost just hangs there suspended in my memory like it's waiting for a different outcome. We never stopped there again. Not once. My mom didn't explain it, and I never asked. It was just gone from our mornings, like that gas station had been cut out of the map. But I still see it sometimes, in dreams, in memories that come out of nowhere. The booth, the pumps, that sagging door behind the station, the stillness of that morning when no one showed up. I try to piece it all together, but it never quite lines up. There are always gaps, always something just out of reach. Maybe that's the part that sticks with me most. Not the fear, but the not knowing. I don't really know when it started, staying out late for no real reason. It just became our thing during college. We weren't throwing wild parties or doing anything remotely productive. Most nights we weren't even drinking. It was just this weird ritual of driving around aimlessly, parking somewhere quiet, and sitting under dim lights while the same playlist looped for hours. Some nights we'd hit the park. Other times it was the back lot behind the rec center, or that half-abandoned strip mall where nothing ever opened. We'd sit on car hoods, toss around garbage conversation, argue over music that didn't matter, and somehow stretch it all into 4 or 5 hours like we were allergic to going home. I used to think it meant something, like we were holding on to youth or freedom or whatever abstract idea people romanticize when they're not ready to face reality. But if I'm being honest, we were just floating. Nowhere to be, nothing to do. Just trying to outrun something we didn't know how to name. Eventually, it became routine, like brushing your teeth or checking your phone. After enough time, I got used to those late drives home. The streets would be dead quiet, like the whole town had shut down except for me. I remember loving that feeling. The silence, the emptiness. It made everything feel softer, less real. But the truth is, when you spend that much time moving around at hours no one else is awake, you start to see things, or notice things you weren't supposed to. I didn't realize how much those quiet nights had changed me until this one particular night. The one that didn't go like the rest. The one I still think about way too often. That night wasn't supposed to be anything different. Just another one of those long, empty drives home after a night of doing absolutely nothing. I just dropped Marcus off near his dorm. He gave one of those half salutes as he walked off, like we were both too tired to bother saying anything real. I remember thinking I should feel more exhausted than I did. But I wasn't. I was just ready to be done. I needed gas anyway, so I figured I'd hit the Harrison Fuel Mart on the way back. It's this old 24-hour spot just off Route 12. Nothing special, just the same broken sign, same busted speaker on pump 3, same guy behind the counter who always looked like he was 2 minutes away from quitting. It wasn't even a decision, really. I didn't choose to stop, I just did, like muscle memory. It's funny how those tiny, thoughtless routines can lead you into places you don't expect. The lot was empty when I pulled in. Not surprising, it was pushing 4 in the morning. The only thing keeping the place alive was the flickering buzz from those big overhead lights. They always made everything look weird, too bright in some spots, too shadowy in others. Like the light couldn't decide what to show, but it was familiar, and for some reason that was enough to make me feel okay, even though there was this weird static under my skin. Nothing obvious, just a feeling, like something was off, but not enough to stop the rhythm. I remember thinking I'd be home in 10 minutes, maybe grab a snack, crash on the couch, just like any other night. But that stop? It's the moment where everything started to slip. I was walking toward the building to prepay. Same slow steps I always took when it was cold and too late and I didn't feel like being anywhere. That's when I saw him. Just standing there near the side of the building, this short guy, hoodie hanging off him like it wasn't his. Head tilted low, hands in his sleeves. I probably wouldn't have noticed him at all if he hadn't stopped moving. Like completely stopped. And then he looked up. He looked at me. Not just glanced in my direction, like locked in. Eyes steady, unblinking. The kind of look that doesn't feel curious or accidental. It was the kind that makes your brain go quiet for a second. Like it's trying to process something that doesn't fit. He didn't say anything. Didn't do anything. Just stood there and stared like he knew me. Or like he thought he did. It wasn't aggressive exactly, but it wasn't normal. There was this weird tension in it, like he was waiting for me to react and already knew how I would. I kept walking, didn't speed up, didn't slow down, just kept moving, like nothing was weird. That's how you get through those moments. You train yourself to file it under random guy being weird and you move on. Because if you stop and let yourself think about it, your mind goes places you can't really come back from. Still, there was something about that look that stuck with me. Something I couldn't name. I told myself it was nothing. That he was probably just high or lost or both. You get all types in a college town. But even then, part of me knew that wasn't the end of it. Inside, the gas station was exactly how you'd expect it to be at 4 in the morning. Quiet, weirdly bright, and kind of frozen in time. The guy behind the counter, Randy or Robbie or something like that, looked like he'd been running on fumes since midnight. Slouched behind the lottery stand, eyes glazed over like he'd seen way too many graveyard shifts and not enough sunlight. I handed over a 20, told him the pump number, grabbed one of those dumb scratchers I always pick up even though I never win. He rang it all up without looking at me. Then, as I was turning to leave, he said something. Not loud, not urgent, just tossed it out there like a passing thought. Said the guy outside had been hanging around for a few nights. Said some folks had mentioned it, that he gave off a weird vibe. Not threatening, just strange. I nodded. One of those automatic, non-committal gestures you give when your brain's already halfway out the door. I didn't ask questions. Didn't really even pause. I just took my ticket, muttered thanks, and walked back out like it was all part of the usual background noise. But now, that one little comment won't leave me alone. It's the way he said it, like he wasn't trying to make a scene, but maybe he should've. Or maybe I should've been the one to dig deeper. But we're all so trained to keep moving, to not overreact. Especially late at night when you're running on autopilot and just want to get home. I keep thinking, if I had actually heard him, really let the words land, maybe I would have taken a longer look around. Maybe I would have locked my doors. Back outside, the world had gone flat again. You know that kind of stillness that only really happens deep into the night when the sky's just starting to hint at morning, but nothing's awake yet. That's what it felt like. Like time had hit pause. No cars at the pumps, no flicker of movement from the streets. Just the low buzz of those old fluorescent lights overhead and the soft click of the gas nozzle filling up my tank. It was all so normal, familiar, comforting even. I did my usual scan. Nothing serious, just a quick sweep out of habit. I've always done that, probably from all those years of being out too late, seeing too many things that didn't quite make sense. But this time, the hoodie guy was gone. And I remember thinking, okay, cool, he left. Like that was the end of it. Like it made sense. What's weird though, and it didn't hit me until later, I never actually saw him leave. There was no moment where he walked off down the sidewalk or turned a corner or even just stepped out of view. He was there, and then he wasn't. I guess at the time I didn't question it. I wanted to believe it meant I was in the clear, that whatever strange energy had been hanging over that place was gone with him. So I didn't dwell. I capped the tank, got back in the car, and pulled out onto the road like I'd done 100 times before. But now, when I think about it, and I do a lot, I can't shake that detail. How someone can vanish from an empty space without you noticing, and how easy it is to pretend that doesn't mean anything. I wasn't even 5 minutes from home. Streetlights were thinning out, and the roads were getting that familiar stretch of nothingness. No traffic, no motion, just me and the occasional glow from someone's porch a few blocks off. It should have been the easy part, the part where you let your guard down. And then I heard something. It was small. A shift, like the sound of fabric brushing against something. Just enough to make the air feel different. I didn't react at first, thought maybe I'd hit a bump or something in the trunk had rolled. But then I glanced up at the mirror, and everything stopped. He was sitting there, in my back seat. That same guy, hoodie pulled tighter now, like he was trying to disappear into it. But he didn't look scared. He didn't look angry. He looked calm, settled, like I was the one who didn't belong, like I'd gotten into his car by mistake. It's hard to explain what happens to your body in a moment like that. My brain went white, not blank, just white noise, like static. My hands were on the wheel, but they didn't feel like mine. I couldn't tell if I was breathing or just trying to. It felt like the world had tilted. Nothing made sense. I didn't hear a door open. I didn't hear the seat shift. There was no moment where he got in, but there he was. And for a second, I genuinely couldn't tell if I was dreaming or hallucinating, or if maybe this was just how things end. Not with some big bang, just with someone sitting quietly in the dark behind you, like they'd always been there. I don't even remember slamming the brakes. 1 second he was behind me, and the next I was outside the car, door flung open, lungs working on their own. I wasn't screaming words, just sound, panic, raw and loud, spilling out into the street like I didn't care who heard it. The neighborhood started to wake up, slow and half confused. A few porch lights blinked on, doors cracked open, silhouettes started to form, but none of it felt real. Everything looked far away, like I was watching it happen from underwater. And then he got out, not fast, not afraid. He just stepped out like this was part of his routine, like none of what just happened had meant anything to him. He looked around once, barely even glanced at me, and said something. Just one sentence. I won't even repeat it now. It's burned in. Then he walked off. Down the middle of the street. No rush, no hiding. Like he knew no one would stop him. People came over. I remember voices. Are you okay? What happened? But it all felt like noise. I nodded, said I was fine. I think I even tried to laugh it off, but I wasn't okay. Not even close. I drove home with the interior lights on full blast, staring into every mirror, every shadow, like I was expecting someone to reappear. I still do that sometimes, even when I know it's irrational, even when I check the locks 3 times before pulling out, and I keep circling back to the same question. How did he get in? When did it happen? Was it when I paid? When I scratched the ticket? Or had he already decided, before I even showed up, that I was the one? There's no version of the story where any of it sits right.